Hello, my name is Ari Waldman. I'm a person who stutters. Today is Wednesday, December 16, 2020, the first day of the Jewish month of Tevet, the sixth day of Hanukkah. Happy Rosh Chodesh, the first day of the month. I'm a person who stutters, and this is mesechet keritot, chapter 2, 8b. I'm going to be practicing pausing. Here it goes. Going for 35 minutes. Haderech Alecha Shloshim V'Shesh Matnei Arba'a Mechusrei Kapara V'Arba'a Meviyin Al Zadon Kashogeg. Mishnah, there are 4 individuals whose halachic status is defined as lacking atonement, kapara, which means they had been in a state of ritual impurity and underwent rituals to purify themselves, but since they have not yet brought the requisite atonement offering to complete the purification process, they may not partake of sacrificial meat. And there are 4 individuals who bring an offering for an unintentional transgression in the same manner as they do for an unwitting transgression. Ve'eluhein mechusre kapara hazav v'hazava v'hayoledet v'hamitzora, and these are the 4 individuals who lack atonement. The man who experiences a gonorrhea-like discharge is zav, the woman who experiences a discharge of uterine blood after a menstrual period is zava, the woman after childbirth, and the leper. In all 4 of these cases, although the individual has completed all the other steps of the purification process, the process is not complete until the atonement offering has been brought. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, Ger Michoser Kapara Ad Sheyizrok Alav Hadam Nozir Leinu Vitag Lachto Vitom Ato. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, a convert who lacks atonement, even after he has been circumcised and has immersed in a ritual bath, until the priest sprinkles the blood of his offering on the altar. On his behalf, a Nazirite also lacks atonement with regard to his permission for drinking wine and cutting his hair, and his exposure to ritual impurity imparted by a corpse until his offerings are sacrificed. Gemara, Mai Shana Zav V'Zava Demane De Lohon Batrin Mishum De Chaluka Tom Ato De Zav Lo Matma Be'onis Bezava Lo Matma Mitma'a Briot Breyot Kivyamim. Gemara. The Mishnah lists 4 individuals whose status is defined as lacking atonement until their offering is brought: the zav, the zava, the woman after childbirth, and the leper. The Gemara asks, what is different about a zav and a zava, that the Tana decided to count them as 2 separate cases? The Gemara answers, they are different due to the fact that the impurity of a zav is distinct from that of a zava. As a zav does not become impure if he has a discharge by accident, i.e. due to a cause such as illness or having consumed certain foods, whereas there is no such exemption in the case of a zava. And a zava, unlike a zav, does not become impure by 3 sightings of menstrual-type blood on one day, like she becomes impure by sightings on 3 consecutive days. Tanya Vayikra Tedvav Vet Mivsaro Lo Machamat Onaso Umi Tama Briot Kivyomim Tanya Tala Hakatuv et Hazachar Briot Ve'et Hanekeva Biyamim Vizaba Mat Ama Mitame Ve'ones Velo Mitamea Briot Kivyomim. As it is taught in a Braita, the verse states, when any man has a discharge from his flesh, his discharge is impure. Leviticus 15:2. The term from his flesh teaches that the discharge is impure only if it is due to an internal cause and not due to his accident, and therefore a zav becomes impure by 3 sightings of gonorrhea-like discharge. On a day like he becomes impure by 3 such sightings on 3 consecutive days, as it is taught in a Braita. The verse links the impurity of the male, i.e. a zav, to the number of sightings on the same day or in consecutive days, and of the female zava to the number of consecutive days on which she experiences sightings of blood. And by contrast, a zava becomes impure if she has a discharge by accident, and does not become impure by sightings on one day, like she becomes impure by sightings on 3 consecutive days. Therefore, the Mishnah counts them as 2 separate cases. Mitzora umitzoraat nami chaluka tom atan. De mitzora ta'un priya ufrima dichtiv vayikra yud gimel memhe bigodov yihu perumim v'rosho yeh parua v'asur bitishmish hamita. The Gemara objects, but the impurities of a male leper and a female leper are also distinct, as a male leper requires letting his hair grow wild and rending his garments, as it is written, his garments shall be rent, and the hair of his head shall go wild. Leviticus 13:45. And he is prohibited from engaging in sexual intercourse. Umitzora eina tu'una priya ufrima titania eich li ella ish isha minyan minayin kishahu omer vayikra yud gimel ma v'hatzarua hare kan shani. And by contrast, a female leper does not require letting her hair grow wild and rending her garments, as it is taught in a Braita. The verse states, he is a leprous man. Leviticus 13:44. I have derived only that a man can be a leper. From where do I derive that a woman can also be a leper? When the verse states, and the leper, in whom the mark is Leviticus 13:45, without specifying a man, the verse teaches that there are 2 here, i.e. a man and a woman. Im kein ma tamid lomar ish natku ha-katuv me'inyan shel mala le'inyan shel mata lomar ish porea uporem ve'ein ha'isha porat ve'poremet umoteret bitashmish hamita shene'amar vayikra yudalad chet vayeshev michutz la'alo shivat yamim v'lo michutz le'ohla. The Braita asks, if so, why does this verse state a leprous man, the Braita answers, the verse removed it from the matter stated earlier and applied it to the matter stated later. His garments shall be rent, and the hair of his head shall go wild. So say that a man who is a leper lets his hair grow wild and rends his garments. But the woman who is a leper does not need to let her hair grow wild and does not need to rend her garments. And a female leper is permitted to engage in sexual intercourse, as it is stated, and he shall dwell outside his tent for 7 days. Leviticus 14:8, and not outside her tent. Hilchach nimninhu batran zav v'zava ikar tomatan chaluka mitzora umitzorat ein ikar tomatan chaluka hai v'hai ki gris hu. The Gemara now resumes, stating its objection. Therefore, let us count the male and female leper as two separate cases, as the Mishnah does with regard to the Zav and Zava. Why does the Mishnah not do so? The Gemara explains, with regard to a Zav and Zava, they are treated as separate cases because the essence of their impurity is distinct, as the impurity of a Zav is based on the number of sightings of discharge, whereas the impurity of a Zava is based on the number of consecutive days on which she experiences sightings of menstrual-type blood. By contrast, with regard to a male leper and female leper, the essence of their impurity is not distinct, as in both this case of a male leper and that case of a female leper. The impurity is based on a leper's mark, which at least the area of a split beam. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, ger mechoser kule. The Taf Kuf, my taima, lotani ger ki kitani midam. The mishre lemechal b'kodashim ger ki ka mite karban la ach shure nafshe limeal b'kahal. The Mishnah teaches that Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says a convert also lacks atonement until the priest sprinkles the blood of his offering on the altar on his behalf. The Gemara also asks, what is the reason that the first Tana does not also teach a convert, i.e., what does the first Tana not include him in the list of individuals lacking atonement? The Gemara answers, when the first Tana teaches those individuals who lack atonement, he includes any manner where the atonement offering completes the process of purification and thereby permits the individual to partake of sacrificial meat. But when a convert brings his atonement offering, it is to qualify him to enter the congregation of Israel through marriage, not to permit him to partake of sacrificial meat. The Nazir my taima lo tani sof Nazir nami ki mete karban ish tarve lim mishte yayin dechulin hu. The Gemara asks, and what is the reason that the first Tana also does not teach that a Nazirite lacks atonement? The Gemara answers, ultimately, as well, when a Nazarite brings his own offering, it is to permit him to drink non-sacred wine, not to permit him to partake of sacrificial meat. Rabbi Eliezer dikatani, nazir l'mishrei nafshe, nitne nami nazir tame, ki ka mete karban l'miechal, el aleha nizirut b'tahara hu. The Gemara objects, and according to the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, who teaches a Nazarite in the Mishnah's list of those who lack atonement, because the Nazarite brings his offering in order to permit himself to drink wine, let him also teach, i.e., include in the list of a ritually impure Nazarite. The Gemara answers, a ritually pure Nazarite brings an offering in order to render an action permitted, and therefore Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov considers him lacking atonement. By contrast, when a ritually impure Nazarite brings his offering, it is not to render an action permitted, but rather to effect upon himself a new period of Nazariteship in purity. Tanu Rabbanan, ger me'ochev le'echol b'kadoshim ad sheyavi kinu hevi prida echad shacharit ochel b'kadoshim la'erev kol hakinin shebatorah achad chatat ve'achad ola kan shtehen olot. With regard to the atonement offering of a convert, the sages taught in a Braita, the convert is precluded from partaking of sacrificial meat until he brings his bird's nest, i.e., his offering of a pair of birds, either pigeons or doves. If he brought one young bird, perida, in the morning, he may partake of sacrificial meat in the evening, and he may bring the second bird at a later time. Furthermore, with regard to all other cases in the Torah where birds' nests are mandated as offerings, one of the birds is brought as a sin offering and the other one as a burnt offering. But here, in the case of the convert, both of them are burnt offerings. Hevi chovato, mina behema, yatsa ola, ushlami yatsa mincha, ushlami lo yatsa lo amru kan, ela lahakel. The Braita continues, if instead of birds, the convert brought a burnt offering from an animal as his obligatory offering, he has fulfilled his obligation, and if he brought a burnt offering and a peace offering, he has also fulfilled his obligation. But if he brought a meal offering and a peace offering, he has not fulfilled his obligation. This is because a burnt bird nest was stated in the Torah only to be lenient for him. Therefore, if he voluntarily brought an animal, which is more expensive as a burnt offering, he has fulfilled his obligation. Mai shana mincha ushlamim de lo yatsa dichtiv bamidbar tedvav yudalit kasher tasu kain yase ma atem ola ushlamim af ger ola ushlamim. The Gemara asks, what is different among a meal offering and a peace offering? That if the convert brings these, he has not fulfilled his obligation. The Gemara answers, it is as it is written, and if a stranger dwell with you, or whosoever may be among you, throughout your generations, and will offer an offering made by fire of a pleasing aroma unto the Lord. As you do, so he shall do. Numbers 15:14. From this verse it is derived, just as you brought a burnt offering and a peace offering, when you entered the covenant on Mount Sinai, as it is stated, and they sacrifice burnt offerings, and they sacrifice peace offerings. Exodus 24:5. So too, a convert must bring a burnt offering and a peace offering. Al kein chovato, achat mina behema lo tisage aleha begava begoveha. Dehichtiv kasher ta'asu kain ya'aseh. Amarav papa yesh lomar la'of it rabbe le'olat behema lo kain shekain. The Gemara objects, if so, in a case where he brought one offering from an animal for his obligation, that should not be enough for him, as isn't it written, and you do, so shall he do, which teaches that he must bring both a burnt offering and a peace offering? Why then does the Braita state that a single burnt offering from an animal is sufficient? Rav Papa says one can say that this is derived from a fortiori inference. In a burnt offering was included as an inexpensive way for a convert to fulfill his obligation. Would the Torah not all the more so include a more expensive animal burnt offering? I hachi afilu mincha nami miat kara king. The Gemara objects, if so, then even a meal offering should fulfill the convert's obligation. The Gemara answers, the verse restricts the acceptable offerings, excluding a meal offering, as it states, just as you do, so he shall do, meaning that he must not do less than that. The of heicha it rabbi the Tanu Rabbanan kasher ta'asu chen yaseh ma atem ola ushlamim af hu ola ushlamim shene'amar bamidbar tedvav kachem kigar minyan larabot et haof Talmud lomar bamidbar tedvav yud ishe reach nichoach ladonai eze diber shekulo lashem have omer olat haof. The Gemara asks, and where was a bird offering included as an option? The Gemara answers that this is as the sages taught in a Braita. The verse states, as you do, so he shall do. Numbers 15:14. Just as you entered the covenant, which a burnt offering and a peace offering, so too a convert fulfill his obligation with a burnt offering and a peace offering, as it is stated. As you are, so shall the stranger be. Numbers 15:15. From where is it derived to include the option of the burnt offering instead of an animal? The verse states, an offering made by fire, of a pleasing aroma unto God, unto the Lord, Numbers 15:14, which item is an offering that is entirely for the Lord. You must say this is referring to a burnt offering, which is entirely consumed upon the altar. 9a. Yachol sha'ani meraba afilu meruba afilu mincha Talmud lomar kain. The Braita continues, one must have thought that I include as an option even a meal offering, which would not be entirely consumed on the altar. Therefore, the verse states, so he shall do, to exclude a meal offering. Tanya, idach, bamidbar tedvav yudalad yasa isha, reach nichoach ladonai, shomea ani kol sheola, leishim, afilu, mincha Talmud lomar, bamidbar tedvav yudalad, kasher ta'asu kain yasa ma atem mine demayim, af him mine damim. It is taught in another Braita, the verse states, and if a stranger sojourn with you, or whoever may be among you, throughout your generations, and will offer an offering made by fire, of a pleasing aroma unto the Lord. As you do, so he shall do. Numbers 15:14. From the verse, I would derive that he fulfills his obligation with any offering that is brought on the fire of the altar, even a meal offering. Therefore, to negate that interpretation, the verse states, and you do, as you do, so he shall do, which teaches that just as you entered the covenant with types of offerings whose blood is sprinkled on the altar, so too must they converts bring types of offerings whose blood is sprinkled on the altar. Ima atem ola ushlamim af heim ola ushlamim Talmud lomar bamidbar tedvav kachem keger yihia lachem hiksh atav velo ledaber acher ledavar acher lekarbonotechem. The Braita continues, if so, why not derive similarly, just as you entered the covenant with a burnt offering and a peace offering, so too they must enter the covenant with a burnt offering and a peace offering.